Coming up on Network Africa, human trials for a COVID-19 vaccine developed by Oxford University is set to begin in South Africa. South African court cancels former President Jacob Zuma's arrest warrant over claims of ill health. Plus, Malawians vote in a historic rerun presidential election. Thank you for joining us on the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. Network Africa begins in South Africa, where human trials for a COVID-19 vaccine developed by Oxford University are set to begin. Some 2,000 people in the country will be involved in what is widely considered to be one of the earliest and most advanced trials for a vaccine to tackle the pandemic. The first doses of the vaccine are being administered in Johannesburg this week. Similar tests are already underway in the UK, but the infection rate there is slowing, hence the move not just to South Africa, but also to Brazil, where 5,000 people will be involved in the vaccine trial. Meanwhile, about 180 South African pupils have tested positive for coronavirus, and local media says the health authorities are scrambling to contain an outbreak at their school in the Eastern Cape province. Makuula Senior Secondary School was closed on Tuesday for decontamination, and officials say contact tracing and testing is underway. The South African Democratic Teachers Union has called for the closure of schools in the area in the wake of this news. Eastern Cape Province has so far closed 196 schools since President Cyril Ramaphosa ordered the reopening of schools on the 1st of June for older students. Away from the coronavirus stories for now, but still in South Africa, the High Court in Pietermaritzburg has cancelled an arrest warrant against former President Jacob Zuma after his lawyer handed in a doctor's letter confirming his ill health. The arrest warrant was issued in February after Mr. Zuma failed to appear in court for a hearing. His legal team had said the former president had gone to Cuba for a medical procedure, but the court was not satisfied with the explanation. Pre-trial proceedings began on Tuesday regarding the corruption trial in which Mr. Zuma is accused of receiving bribes from French arms company Thales 20 years ago. The hearing has now been postponed to September.
When we say that COVID has had a marked effect,
I think we all can take note.
it has,
yes.
And we have no control. We'd far prefer that it didn't. And we would be further ahead were it not for that. And the problems we would in all likelihood maybe have all agreed on October.
The problem that Mr. Downer sneaks in a timetable that nullifies the fact that we say this trial must start.
Let's bring in our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Debia, to discuss all these happenings in the country. Hello, Betty. Good to see you.
Hello, Lion. Thank you so much.
Well, a whole lot is happening today, but let me begin with the former President Zuma. His lawyers handed over doctors' letters confirming his ill health, and as a result, the hearing has been postponed. What do we know of the health condition of Mr. Zuma?
Well, correction, the postponement of the case had absolutely nothing to do with his health or the state of his, as you had seen in that clip, he was present in court. Remember, a warrant of arrest was issued should he fail to appear this time in court because he failed in February. So now there was supposed, according to Section 170 of the Criminal Procedures process, there was supposed to be an inquiry into his not appearing, but that doctor's letter, the medical report, and was accepted by all sides, including the judge. So that put paid to that, and the warrant of arrest has now been cancelled. Now the postponement has to do with just preparedness. That's just it. The defense is now saying, look, we're ready to stop wasting time. And the state seems to be stalling. But in that exchange, you had a lot of finger pointing. State is saying defense has been stalling all along. Defense is saying we're ready. Now the world can see that it's not our fault, that there is a delay. So they were saying, look, we're actually ready to start probably in August. And Judge Daya said, no, that's not possible. The state is asking for probably February or first part of 2021. And they're complaining, the defense is complaining that, look, this is at a cost to us. Whereas for the defense, is the state that is paying. So finger pointing and all that. The issue of the letter had to do with that warrant of arrest, which has now been cancelled. So September 8th is still pre-trial meeting. Maybe that date, they'll be able to fix a trial date. That hasn't been fixed. And another thing that may delay is Thales is now seeking to apply for review of the charges, especially where it's mentioning racketeering alongside their name. So if that process is completed by September 8th, which is the next court date, maybe the case will move on and probably a trial date will start.
All right, with all of this that you have told us, I assume citizens are also following this closely. What is their reaction to this?
It's those who support him against those who are against him, or against all the leaders who they feel have been corrupt and not looking after the country and their welfare all along. So people are watching and just saying, look, let this trial start already, or let's conclude this, or just let the man go. So everyone wants to hear what actually happened in this case, or hearing him prove his case that he's actually not guilty of all the charges, as the defense is saying that why don't you just throw out the case, but we'll get to hear that from September. We'll get to hear where next they will be going, but a trial date may be given on that September 8th.
All right, we'll just have to wait and see. But let's speak on the COVID-19 human vaccine trials, set to begin in the country. This is a huge step in South Africa's fight against the virus. Help us understand, how will this trial be carried out?
Well, the trial is 1 out of 6 human trials going on around the world. And the vaccine in this case, generally have over 100 going on around. But this particular one developed by the UK's Oxford Jenner Institute is called, if that's the right pronunciation, ChAdOx1 and COVID-19, the vaccine. So now it's going on in Brazil and the UK, which is the origin this time around. South Africa is the first African country. In South Africa, in particular, they're looking at about 2,000 volunteers. The first volunteer will be vaccinated tomorrow. So it's going to be rolled out tomorrow. 2,000 people, there's a list of criteria. People between 18 and 69, they must be the ideal weights. 50 of them are going to be HIV positive, because the leading researchers are saying they want to see how this vaccine will react or interact with HIV. And then they could be male or female. They wouldn't have had any strain of the COVID in their lives before and no vaccines before. So they will be watched over a year to see if this will make a difference. And then you still have a placebo group within that group as well. And you have the expectation is like probably a 60% success rate. But the trial period is those who are going to be involved. I think it's a short period for the trial, but they will watch them over a year, but be in touch with them every 2 weeks to see the progress or things changing with them or not. But the first will be vaccinated tomorrow.
All right, then, Betty Debia, South Africa Bureau Chief, thanks for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Well, some demonstrators have clashed with police and blocked roads in the southern Tunisian city of Tataouni, drawing salvos of tear gas to disperse them in an escalation of protests over high unemployment in the country. Video shows protesters walking in streets filled with debris as smoke rises overhead in the Tunisian city. Protesters are calling on the government to implement a 2017 deal to create jobs in oil companies and infrastructure projects to reduce unemployment, now running at 30% in the region, one of the highest rates in Tunisia. A decade after a popular revolution ended Zine El Abidine Ben Ali's autocratic rule, the North African state is still struggling to deliver economic opportunities to unemployed young people. Let's move to Malawi now, where a rerun of last year's election is taking place. President Peter Mutharika has appealed for calm after accusing the opposition of stirring up violence. His narrow victory in last year's poll was annulled in February after judges ruled that there had been evidence of vote tampering. The incumbent is facing a strong challenge from an opposition coalition led by Lazarus Chakwera. Arriving at the polling station wearing a protective face mask, Mr. Chakwera says this election is the starting of a new country. The African Union's Human Rights Commission has accused the government of foul play ahead of the vote by trying to replace the Chief Justice and another judge in the Court of Appeal.
This is our date with destiny, and this is the time for the beginning of a new Malawi.
All right, let's bring in Mercy Malikwa, a Malawian journalist joining us live from Blantyre. Hello, Mercy. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Now, to us about today's exercise. What has been the turnout? What has the turnout been like so far?
So far, we are just remaining with an hour for the voting exercise to close, but the turnout has been quite impressive. People have been turning out to their polling centers in large numbers. Specifically, the turnout was very much impressive in the morning hours when the polling centers were just opening around 6 a.m. The numbers kind of went down in the afternoon after lunch, but people were still turning out to exercise their right.
All right, the election is much anticipated after the Constitutional Court earlier this year ruled that last year's vote, won narrowly by President Mutharika, was fraught with grave irregularities. What assurances are there now to ensure a fair election this time around?
As you are aware, the commission that is currently administering this election has just been appointed. So they've been really trying their best to maintain transparency. They've been talking to people about all the changed processes that are there and all the processes that are expected to take place. Security has also been tightened during this election. All the security apparatus, that's police, the defense force, on the ground, making sure that they maintain peace. There have been some non-government organizations that have also come up with a hub where they are monitoring the situation on the ground, registering all anomalies that might arise from the poll.
All right, finally, Mercy, when can we expect results?
The Electoral Commission Chairperson, Justice Chifundo Kachali, has emphasized that the Commission has got 8 days from today to announce the results, and he's pleaded from Malawians to exercise patience, urging them that they must not pressurize the Electoral Commission to release the results. Saying that the commission will release the results within these 8 days, but he's not specifically said when.
And Mercy Malikwa, Malawian journalist, thank you for speaking to us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Still ahead on the program. The UN envoy to Somalia calls for more international assistance to help the country in its COVID-19 response. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Let's take a look at the figures from Africa. The coronavirus cases now stands at 315,855. From that figure, 156,663 are the active confirmed cases. More than 150,000 people have recovered, and the death toll stands at over 8,300. South Africa has passed the 100,000 mark, topping the list of countries with the highest number of cases with 101,590. Egypt is second with 56,809 cases, and Nigeria with 20,919 cases. Next is Ghana with 14,154 recorded cases, then Cameroon, which has seen 12,041 cases. Meanwhile, the countries with the most fatalities are Egypt with 2,278, South Africa 1,991, Algeria 852, Sudan 533, and Nigeria 525. The Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, says he is deeply concerned by continued violations of the Central African Republic political agreement for peace and reconciliation by some of the signatories, as well as by tensions between the government and the leader of the Return Reclamation Rehabilitation Rebel Group, Sidiki Abbas. The peacekeeping chief says the UN mission in CAR MINUSCA is working closely with partners to mitigate threats posed by armed groups and militias.
I am deeply concerned by continued violations of the agreement, mainly by some signatories. Our main concern at the moment are the tensions between the government and the leader of 3R, who announced that his armed groups would suspend participation in the follow-up and monitoring mechanisms of the political agreement, and has adopted an aggressive response that does not align with his commitments. In order to preserve the viability of the political agreement, MINUSCA is working closely with the guarantors and other partners and engaging with the parties to encourage and facilitate dialogue while maintaining a robust posture to protect civilians and mitigate threats posed by armed groups. And the political situation remains fragile, dominated by the preparations for the presidential and legislative elections scheduled for December 2020. Political parties are forming coalitions, increasing public statements, announcing candidacies for the presidential elections, and challenging legal frameworks, on occasions at least, for the elections. However, as the report before you observes, political tensions were amplified by an attempt by a group of parliamentarians from the presidential majority to extend the tenures of the President and the National Assembly in the event that the elections cannot be held within constitutional timelines, due to, and I quote, unforeseen circumstances, end of quote.
Despite progress of the political front, there has been an increase in insecurity incidents involving some of the armed groups signatory of the peace agreement. Incidents were reported in Dele, Bambuti, and Obo, where armed groups clashed with each other and in some instances exacerbating already existing intercommunal violence.
Or the UN Special Representative to Somalia, James Swan, is calling for more international support for a better response to the coronavirus pandemic in the country. Mr. Swan says the support already provided by international partners has enabled the country to provide facilities for patient care in the pandemic, but more assistance is needed. During a visit to the De Martini Hospital, the special representative spoke after touring the facilities at the hospital and meeting healthcare workers to see firsthand Somalia's response.
As friends and partners, we have been honored to help you and to stand by your side and to provide support. But the core work, the core leadership has been yours, but it has been our privilege to offer some assistance through the World Health Organization, through the International Organization for Migration, through the United Nations Children's Fund, and frankly, through many other UN entities that have contributed since the beginning of this pandemic. I want to extend our deep appreciation to all of the frontline health workers, critical care staff, those who are in support positions, who have provided critical care, have provided medical services, have supported the testing, have provided other support services, and of course have treated the patients. You are on the front lines. You are the ones delivering response to those affected by the disease. And you have the gratitude and appreciation, I believe, of your nation, but also of your friends and partners.
All the international partners, and I would like to thank you very much. All the UN agencies, IOM, WHO, in Prince is here, UNICEF and international agencies. It was an effort not only by the government, but all who took part in helping, in a way or other, in small, big, but we are very grateful to them.
Namibia's Education Ministry has released a new school calendar as the country further eases restrictions. The ministry said the phased reopening of schools will start from the 6th of July to the 3rd of August. The short term shall end on the 18th of December. President Hage announced that more restrictions had been eased, limiting the number of tourists from what he describes as a carefully selected low-risk market. In the relaxed restrictions, casinos and gambling houses will open for pre-booked clients. The number of people allowed in weddings and funerals has been increased from 50 to 250. The country has so far confirmed 63 coronavirus cases and no deaths. Well, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has warned that the country is heading for a more dangerous phase of the coronavirus pandemic. In a televised address on Monday night, Mr. Museveni said cases of the disease were being reported among people whose contacts could not be traced following the reopening of private and public transport in some parts of the country. Previous cases of the disease had mostly been reported from among returnees from abroad and cross-border lorry drivers. The president said restrictions on public and private transport in at least 33 border districts will be lifted, but districts that have a high population of refugees or are major border transit points will continue to enforce regulations on transport. Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke. Bye for now.